The Principles of Economics, with Applications to Practical Problems, by Albert Fetter. Chapter 1. The Nature and Purpose of Political Economy. Section 1. Name and Definition. Verbal definition of economics. 1. Economics, or political economy, may be defined, briefly, as the study of men earning a living, or, more fully, as the study of the material world and of the activities and mutual relations of men, so far as all these are the objective conditions to gratifying desires. To define means to mark off the limits of a subject, to tell what questions are or not included within it. The ideas of most persons on this subject are vague. Yet it would be very desirable if the student could approach this study with an exact understanding of the nature of the questions with which it deals. Until a subject has been studied, however, a definition in mere words cannot greatly aid in marking it off clearly in our thought. The essential thing for the student is to see clearly the central purpose of the study, not to decide at once all the puzzling cases. Natural sciences deal with material things. 2. A definition that suggests clear and familiar thoughts to the student seem at first much more difficult to get in any social science than in the natural sciences. These deal with concrete, material things, which we are accustomed to see, handle, and measure. If a mere child is told that botany is a study in which he may learn about flowers, trees, and plants, the answer is fairly satisfying, for he at once thinks of many things of that kind. When in like manner zoology is defined as the study of animals, or geology as the study of rocks and the earth, the words call up memories of many familiar objects. Even so difficult and foreign-looking a word as ichthyology seems to be made clear by the statement that it is the name of the study in which one learns about fish. It is true that there may be some misunderstanding as to the way in which these subjects are studied. For botany is not in the main to teach how to cultivate plants in the garden, nor ichthyology how to catch fish or to propagate them in a pond. But the main purpose of these studies is clear at the outset from these simple definitions. Indeed, as the study is pursued and knowledge widens to take in the manifold of various forms of life, the boundaries of the special sciences become not more but less sharp and definite. Economics studies some social acts and relations. Political economy, on the other hand, as one of the social sciences, which deal with men and their relations in society, seems to be a very much more complex thought to get a hold of. We are tempted to say that it deals with less familiar things. But the truth may be, as a thoughtful friend suggests, that simple social acts and relations are more familiar to our thought than are lions, palm trees, or even horses. Every hour in the streets or stores, one may witness thousands of acts, such as bargains, labor, payments, that are the subject matter of economic science. Their very familiarity may cause men to overlook their deeper meaning. Many other definitions have been given of political economy. It has been called the science of wealth, or the science of exchanges. Evidently there are various ways in which wealth may be considered or exchanges made. The particular aspects that are dealt with in political economy will be made clear by considering two other questions: the place of economics among social sciences, and the relation of economics to practical affairs. Section 2. Place of economics among the social sciences. Economics contrasted with the natural sciences. 1. Political economy, as one of the social sciences, may be contrasted with the natural sciences, which deal with material things and their mutual relations, while it deals with one aspect of men's life in society, namely the earning of a living, or the use of wealth. It is true that political economy also has to do with plants and animals and the earth. In fact, with all of those things which are the subject matter of the natural sciences, but it has to do with them only insofar as they are related to man's welfare and affect his estimate of the value of things. only insofar as they are related to the one central subject of economic interest, the earning of a living. Character of the social sciences. 2. The social sciences deal with men and their relations with each other. The word social comes from the Latin socius, meaning a fellow, comrade, companion, associate. As men living together have to do with each other in a great many different ways, and enter into a great many different relations, there arise a great many different social problems. Each of the social sciences attempts to study man in some one important aspect, that is, to view these relations from some one standpoint. Man's acts, his life, and his motives are so complex that it is not surprising that there has been less definitiveness in the thought of the social sciences, and that they have advanced less rapidly toward exactness in their conclusions than have the natural sciences. This complexity also explains the discouragement of the beginner in the early lessons in this subject. Usually, the greatest difficulties appear in the first few weeks of its study. The thought is more abstract than in natural science. It requires a different, I will not say higher, kind of ability than does mathematics. But little by little, the strangeness of the language and ideas disappears. The bare definitions become clothed with the facts of observation and recalled experiences. And soon, the economic acts and relations of men in society come to be as real and as interesting to the student as are the material in the natural world about him, often, indeed, more interesting. Economics, politics, law, and ethics. 3. Political economy is related to all the other social sciences, it being the study of certain of men's relations, while politics, law, and ethics have to do with relations or with relations under a different aspect. Politics treats of the form and working of government, and it's mainly concerned with the question of power or control of the individual's actions and liberty. Law treats of the precepts and regulations in accordance with which the actions of men are limited by the state, and the contracts into which they have seen fit to enter are interpreted. Ethics treats the question of right or wrong, studies the moral aspects of men's acts and relations. The attempt just made to distinguish between the fields occupied by the various social sciences betrays at once the fundamental unity existing among them. The acts of men are closely related in their lives, but they may be looked at from different sides. The central thought in economics is the business relation, the relation of men in exchanging their services or material wealth. In pursuing economic inquiries, we come into contact with political, legal, and ethical considerations, all of which must be recognized before a final practical answer can be given to any question. Nevertheless, the province of economics is limited. It is because of the feebleness of our mental power that we divide and subdivide these complex questions, and try to answer certain parts before we seek to answer the whole. When we attempt this final and more difficult task, we should rise to the standpoint of the social philosopher. Section 3. The relation of economics to practical affairs. Economics is first a science. 1. The ideal of political economy here set forth is that it should be a science, a search for truth, a systematized body of knowledge, arriving at a statement of the laws to which economic actions conform. It is not the advocacy of any particular policy or idea, but if it arrives at any conclusions, any truths, these cannot fail to affect the practical action of men. But it touches many practical interests. Political economy, because defined as the science of wealth, has been described by some as a gospel of mammon. It is hardly necessary to refute such a misconception. Political economy is not the science of wealth getting for the individual. Its study is not primarily for the selfish ends and interest of the individual. Certainly some of its lessons may be of practical value to men in active business, for many economic principles are but the general statement of those ideas that have been approved by the experience of business men, of statesmen, and of the masses of men. Some of its lessons must have educational value in practical business, for political economy is not dreamed out by the closet philosopher, but more and more it is the attempt to describe the interest and action of the practical world in which men must live. Many men are working together to develop its study. Those who collect statistics and facts bearing on all kinds of practical affairs, and those who search through the records of the past for illustrations of experiments and experiences that may help us in our life today. Economic study needed in a democracy. 2. But in the main, the study of political economy is a social study for social ends and not a selfish study for individual advantage. The name political economy was first suggested in France, when the government was monarchical and despotic in the extreme, as domestic economy indicates a set of rules or principles to guide wisely the action of the housekeeper or the owner of an estate. So political economy was first thought of as a set of rules or principles to guide the king and his counselors in the control of the state. The term has continued to bear something of that suggestion in it, though of late the term economics, as being broader and less likely to be confused with politics, has very generally come into use. But in the degree which unlimited monarchy has given way to the rule of the people, the conception of political economy has been modified. In a democracy, there is need for a general diffusion of knowledge. The power now rests not with a king and a few counselors, but in the last resort with the people, and therefore the people must be acquainted with the experience of the past, must have all possible systematic knowledge to enlighten public policy and to guide legislation, is of growing interest and influence. Moreover, with the growth of the modern state, with the increasing importance of business, and of industrial and commercial interest, as compared with changes of dynasty or the personal rivalries of rulers, economic questions have grown in relative importance. In our own country, particularly since the subjects of slavery and of states' rights ceased to absorb the attention of our people, economic questions have pushed rapidly into the foreground. Indeed, it has of late been more clearly seen that many of the older political questions, such as the American Revolution and slavery, formerly discussed almost entirely in their political and constitutional aspects, were at bottom questions of economic rivalry and of economic welfare. The remarkable increase in the attention given to this study in colleges and universities in the last 20 years is but the index of the greatly increased interest and attention felt in it by citizens generally. To sum up, it may be said that in the study of political economy we are seeking the reason, connection, and relations in the great multitude of acts arising out of the dependence of desires on the world of things and men. End of chapter 1.